Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. I'm here with Professor Pixel and RDV. Tonight's episode, the Extreme Movie Show, Kicking It, our special channel where we do action films, action TV stuff, typically movies. And tonight we're going to be discussing the 2019, 2020, 2021, whatever year you want to call it, boss level movie with Frank Grillo and Mel Gibson as the boss level guy in here. So, gentlemen, this is one we had talked about taking a look at for a while. I'm glad we're having an opportunity tonight to discuss it. My initial thoughts about this movie is, one, Frank Grillo should just stick to playing a New Yorker, Italian kind of guy, because that's what he is. That's what he does. He does it well. This movie, I'm gonna go right here and just say it, to be blunt. We've covered Godzilla and Kong. We've recovered Mortal Kombat recently. It's better than both of those, generally speaking, as a film. I'm not going to say you're going to love it more than the other two, depending on what your tastes are. That's different. So everybody don't get pissy on that. It's a big budget movie. Certainly looks like it. The money was spent on it. Gibson's in it just enough where he's in it, not just the last couple minutes. But this is an action movie with a sci-fi element to it, and dressed up as a kind of like a romance to it. It's actually a fun movie. It's pretty darn good. And you know what? It's better than what I expected. And even though Frank Grillo's been around a long time, he's done a lot of different things. Most people may not be aware of him unless they're specifically a martial arts fan or Frank Grillo fan. So let's go around and just give our initial impressions before we start diving into the film, because there's definitely some positive aspects we're going to be talking about. So let's start with you, Professor Pixel. What was your initial take on this film?
Well, I believe out of the three of us, I was the first one to actually see this movie. And it was a surprisingly fun time. I didn't know what to expect because when I looked at the description and I saw that it was a Hulu original, I was incredibly skeptical. But it was really solid, and that surprised me. You're absolutely right about Mel Gibson. He's in it just enough. He's not like Bruce Willis nowadays, where he'll appear in a movie for 5 minutes and just phone it home. It's Mel Gibson. All the side characters are fun too. If you just want a good action flick, this is definitely for you.
Yeah, your point about the side characters is definitely a topic we're going to be mentioning, because it's an extremely solid cast with some quirky enough characters to give it some variety. And Mel Gibson, which will be another point we'll talk about too. I'm a huge fan of his. I think he's fantastic in it too. And Pixel, you're typically not a part of when we do action films for it, but I'm glad you decided to join us tonight with it too, to get your take on it, because RDV and I are marks for action films. But thinking of that, let's just go over to you, RDV. What's your initial take on this film?
I agree with you, being better than pretty much the movies are out right now. I really enjoyed this. I mean, the action, the comedy. Yes, it's a trait. You know, it's got the Groundhog Day thing, but it works for this film. The actors in this, Frank Grillo should be an action star. You know, that's all he needs to be. And it literally felt like you're getting the original, you know, the 80s, 90s, you know, action stars. You know, and it's a fun time. But not only just action, there is some heart felt to this. You know, it's more than just this comedy. There actually is a plot to this. Yeah, dude, it's a feel good movie. You can just sit back and watch this and just. Even if you don't like Mel Gibson, like you said, Mel Gibson isn't the whole entire movie. It's Frank Grillo.
Yeah, it's not centered around Mel Gibson at all. No. You're absolutely right.
And you even get awesome characters in here, like Michelle Yeoh is in here too as well. You know, Naomi Watts plays his wife. You get Annabelle Wallis. You know,
Gronk.
Yep.
Is it Frank Caliendo? Is it Frank Caliendo or the other guy? You call that a bow? That guy that did all the stuff from Mad TV. Oh. He's in here too, I believe. Yeah.
Will Sass? Yeah.
No, it's not Will Sasso. It's the other guy. It's one of them, I think, is in here too. Yeah, so let's just talk a little bit about some of these themes as people are starting to pile into the chat here before we get into some specifics. Yeah, it's a big budget movie. It looked like it got filmed in 2018, about $45 million budget. Obviously, a Hulu original. I'm not sure if it was filmed supposed to be for that, but it got delayed a few times. So I think they just gave it 1 or 2 days as a budget release just to count for it. I think sometimes there's reasons why that happens legally or accounting wise, even if it looks like it's a bomb. But that doesn't mean Hulu didn't pony up a good chunk of change to get this film on there to get eyeballs on it, because it's actually a movie that you go, yeah, I saw it on Netflix, and I think some of us on that have all these streaming services go, yeah, okay, this looks like it would be on streaming service, but not on in a theater. This is a theater type movie, but it also plays well at home. Yeah, so it was mentioned earlier, and I'll just briefly mention that for the people that you haven't seen the film. It's basically Frank Grillo wakes up. It's Groundhog Day with a bunch of voiceovers early on to let you know that something happened. This guy dies every day, and he's trying to figure out how. He wakes up in bed with this ditzy blonde dental hygienist that you find out later. But immediately within 10 seconds, you've got people trying to assassinate him throwing hot coffee in somebody's face. You've got the 50 cal machine gun off the helicopter shooting in the building. And every mistake he makes, he gets gored, literally. And so it's funny and it's cute, but then it changes its tone, because one of the things I did not mention, which I'll say now, what makes this different than your typical action movie is it's almost 2 hours long, because in the second act is where they actually put the heart into it. So let's just kind of start from the beginning. You can kind of go through some of the scenes and talk about some of these themes that we mentioned here. One, it's pretty rare that the three of us have a film we all agree on that's pretty darn good and fun for a lot of the same reasons. But the first thing I noticed and wanted to mention about this film, just overall start to finish, the music and the score is phenomenal. It's primarily a Boston soundtrack. They had off their 76 album a track called Foreplay, Long Time, where they had this big electronic piece in there. And then, of course, they go into the song Long Time. Brad Delp is considered one of the greatest voices of rock. Unfortunately, he how do I say this without saying the word? He took his own life a few years back, I believe. I knew a guy that worked in his band as a sound technician. I used to work with him. We used to have some good stories about him. But Boston is one of those bands like Peter Frampton. You always had their album. Tom Schultz, the guy that's the guitarist, basically was the band. He's the guy that had his stuff go into the not Sony Walkman, but the knockoff Walkman stuff. The guy's like a musical pioneer. Enough of the music stuff, but it's there. They don't just play 1 or 2 snippets and you go, hey, a soundtrack with Boston on it and all your pop stars here. It's not. They totally played out, and it fits for the movie, especially at the end because they replay it. You see what I'm saying?
The main song is "Don't Look Back" by Boston.
Yeah. Gore. Eric's bringing out the old ECW reference in here.
No, there's no rhyme on this movie, but there is a redneck with a harpoon gun in a truck.
Well, and the thing too with the redneck and the harpoon gun, and then I'll stop at that, is that this movie does not hold back on the blood spray, and the effects are special. There's a lot of falling to your death, getting run over. I prefer violence when it's not guns in movies, because I think movies guns are the easy way out. I like it when you're chopping somebody up, or when you're slicing them, or you're beating them up with your fists, or getting run over, or just the physicality that you can see somebody's body. And Frank Grillo does the right thing, takes his shirt off enough where you can see that he's jacked at his mid-50s age. TRT, HGH, who knows what cycle he's on? Who cares? He's legit. And it comes across that way too. So, Pixel, one of the things, being one of the younger members here of the Extreme Movie Show, I always like to pick on you about, because you remind me of 20-somethings when I say something like this is a soundboard, that in the 80s you had legitimacy when it came to the people that played these roles. Whether they were good actors or not was almost irrelevant, because the authenticity is why you went to go see it. So I didn't care that sometimes some of the acting in this movie might have been a bit oopsie, or it seemed like it needed another take. The fact is the guy's, when he's walking, he looks good, he's physical, he's getting tons of action in here. This really did feel like an 80s movie. So I don't know, is that a turnoff for your Pixel, or is there anything about the violence that you want to comment on?
No, I love that. You're absolutely right. It feel exactly like an 80s action flick, and it sorry. It brings back that feeling that you don't get a lot nowadays. Even with what we covered recently, Mortal Kombat, you don't have that feeling. It feels new, absolutely. But this film absolutely can capture that feeling. And as for the violence, bring it on.
I love the soccer moms in the van. He calls them Pam, and like, he's like, and then he finally tricks her, like, and he grabs her gun, and he's like, and she goes, be careful with the gun. What's wrong? It's like, and she admits it's Hitler's gun. He's like, what? So you're being killed this whole entire time using the gun that Hitler used? Like, I just love the little comedic jokes they have in here. Like, they have the midget in here, because basically the assassins that are hired to take them out are just your average
characters of characters.
Yeah.
They're goofy.
Yeah. You got a midget who likes to plant explosives. You got a redneck with a harpoon gun, and his truck is like a shaggin' wagon, almost kind of like Dumb and Dumber. Kind of looks like it's got that felt on it, carpeting.
Shaggin' wagon, 1970s.
But out of all of the side characters, there's one that truly shines.
Yes.
That is
I am Guan Yin, and Guan Yin has done this.
I disagree, gentlemen. It's Michelle Yeoh's character, the swords lady in the diner.
He's facing off against.
No. Well, as far as Michelle Yeoh's in here. She plays a character. She basically, like, they did the whole Groundhog Day thing. Where remember, Bill Murray learned how to play a piano. He only had one day to do it. He kept repeating it over and over again. Well, he learned how to fight with swords, so he could take on Guan Yin. He kept cutting his head off throughout the movie. And I love my favorite part of this whole entire movie is when you get to the bar scene. He's like, he finally gets there. He's like, it's like, doesn't matter what happens. As soon as I step out that door, I get killed. So what do? I get plastered as fuck. I love that he just drinks. And I love the conversation he has with the tech guy in there. He's like, you ever been shot in the mouth before? I have. And like, at first I know it tasted like steak, but then I realized that was my tongue burning.
Well, there's different types of comedy, and this movie had what we would call the irony version of it. So there's a scene in there where he starts to realize, hey, I lasted 3 minutes longer than I did typically. I went to a different place, and then of course he dies or whatever. And they give you the kill count of where he's at, which is cool. But he realizes he was in this underground area in a game room where they played retro games. They made it sound like 80s, but it was really late 80s, 90s games. But even though they had Robotron on the thing and they showed his son playing it. But there was a neat scene in there where I don't know if you're African American, colored, black, whatever, however I want to identify, if you're upset because they have this guy in here at the bar that's dressed like a white nerd with the glasses and he's got the pocket protector, but for her cell phone and for his wallet or whatever, but he's a security guy that plays a pivotal role with having some information that he finds out. But the irony part is when he walks in there and he realizes he's being tracked and it's an implant and he's looking for it like up his butthole and everywhere else. But then the guy says, well, if I were to do it, and I'm the smartest one, I would actually put it in your tooth, which is actually really, really old. It's been an old science fiction stuff, books where it's really written. So he goes there and he pulls out his molar because that's where he thinks it's supposed to be. The guy tells him that.
You guys watch it too. It's like, dude,
and he's like, it's the wrong one. He's like, damn it. And he has to pull out another one until he finds it. So there's appropriate use of comedy in here, but like I said, what made this film a little different besides the weirdo side characters is, yes, his estranged wife happens to be working for Mel Gibson, who is played by Naomi Watts, who has this just unnatural cuteness, beauty about her. She's one that if she just trembles her lip a little bit and her eye, gets a little misty, you're like, oh my God. She's that good and always has been, and the role suits her perfectly. She had brought him in even because they're estranged, they're separated. They can't just be divorced anymore because, God forbid, Hollywood present her as a single mommy. We know that never happens. But she whispers something in his ear, and he gets a book about some of the Egyptian lords of the dead called Osiris, and he has no idea what it is, and that's a big part of it. But what's neat here is that it all of a sudden, in the middle part of this movie, did more of the character building because, let's be honest, the Groundhog Day, as cute it was and what they gave you, that runs out really, really quick. It John Wicks itself in about 10 minutes, where the rest of the movie's and it's not something you can really appreciate. So they actually do a smart thing and develop the characters before they get literally to the boss level, which is Mel Gibson, and how they deal with the end. And I thought that was a smart choice there too, because as an action movie, if it started off with the character development, we'd have been like, what the hell? Give it to me. I want the violence. Tell me what this movie's going to be like.
Probably my favorite character in this is the guy, the assassin who looks just like him. and he uses that to his advantage to sneak into the place for posing as that guy. Because
Right.
no one would assume because they look like twins. It's like ironic. He's like I don't know who this guy is, but he looks just like me, and it's creeping me out. It's like, like I said, this is a movie you can watch with your girlfriend, and your girlfriend might roll her eyes, but you know what? She might enjoy it. She might sit down and be like, realize, you know what? Frank Grillo's kind of hot. He's got his shirt off, and she'll enjoy that, but she'll also enjoy the rest of the movie too.
Well, there's an interesting thing to this movie that we say, okay, it's Groundhog Day, martial arts sort of movie, but I'm going to disagree and say that while you could describe it that way, I go back to a man that when he's at his peak, if he says or does the right thing, you want to run through a brick wall. Or as a man, I admit, I don't cry, but if I'm going to let Denzel make me do it, because there's if you watch the trailer from his 2005, 2006 sci-fi movie, I think it was Tony Scott or Ridley Scott. I think Tony Scott, Deja Vu, a very similar type film where they get to go back in time a little bit, and he's investigating something, and he falls in love with the person that's going to die. And Jim Caviezel, that's my boy right there. He plays the bad guy. It's like the only time he ever has. He's such a stud. There's a scene in there where someone says, or it asks him, what would you do if no matter what you try, things would never work out? And he says, I try, or something like that. And this weird music plays. And that's what happens in here. It turns into deja vu because obviously, his wife is the smarty pants. He's the ex-SEAL guy. She's got this device that looks exactly like that. And every other time, space-time continuum thing, which is actually mentioned in here. And it's kind of hokey, but for some reason in this film, it works. So what did you guys think of the whole character building second act that went on for a long time?
I said I enjoyed it, and they even gave it a little bit of a Greek, background. He's supposed to be Osiris, I think, is who was the king, the Egyptian king that was killed by his brother, but his wife brought him back to life. That's what this whole
she had the power of it, which is what happened. It's just
So they even dropped that in there by because he remembers the book that she gave him to read as a gift, to read. Obviously, that helps him out, clues him in what's going on and all that stuff. And he starts to figure out what's going on. So the whole second half is him bonding with his son, and the whole entire point, up to this time, he thinks his wife's dead. So it never really occurred to him that she could still be alive, So he changes up everything he's been doing. Because remember, he's died over 200 times when we first introduced him in the first 5 minutes of the film. So I like that there's actually different possibilities as far as that, him bonding with his son, because he's a retired private, not a private, but like a sergeant, in the Army.
Well, the kid even jokes with him, hey, are you like that Taken guy with a particular set of skills? I mean, they actually say that. So they were definitely not embarrassed in this film to say, yeah, we're ripping things off.
Well, yeah, they name drop stuff in here. They're not afraid to do that. So yeah, this is one of those movies I could probably watch again. It's just fun, and I would love to play this video game. Wouldn't mind.
Now, Pixel, I know off screen you're telling me you're a little under the weather. Doesn't matter. You're on live here, just west of Orlando, Florida, in Pinos Palace. Give us something. Give it to me. You and I are covering Twin Peaks. That's a very soap opera drama show. There's got to be some angle Twin Peakish that you find in this film.
Well, I wouldn't say Twin Peakish. I think when you're talking about the second act of this movie, you're absolutely right. I also enjoy the growth that the main character, Grillo, plays as
Roy
father,
Culver,
because he hadn't known that the kid was his son until the day before, something like that, and he starts bonding with him. And the kid doesn't.
He knew the kid was his son. He just the kid never grew up knowing that Roy was his father. That's how he always introduced him as a friend of his mother's. So
okay, well,
yeah, so it's okay. It's been a while. You said it's been like a month.
I haven't seen this in a couple weeks. I was the first one to see it.
So he says.
But absolutely, I enjoyed that, and that scene helps him realize what he has to do. It leads him to, I can save my wife as well, which leads into the last loop, which if there's one thing that I kind of love and hate, the ending of this movie, if it's okay to go ahead and talk about that.
Absolutely, it is. Spoil away, sir.
Basically, they get to the point where they take out his DNA out of Osiris's spindle, which is what keeps looping the day.
That's the name of the funky device where after Mel Gibson gets whacked with a pretty cool sword through the hand thingy, that's the device, which is the deja vu ripoff.
Yeah.
That particular day, all this happens. It's unstable, and you see it nuking everything. And there's several shots of him with the sun in the park where they're getting vaporized, a la Terminator 2, which everybody likes to go back to. So he's got to do something. Yeah.
The reason that's happening is because his wife had explained to him it's going to keep exploding because it's not stable. It wasn't meant to this. She just out of desperation put his DNA. Remember she plucked his hair or cut his hair off when she first at the thing when they're the day before. Yeah, and so it's not, it wasn't meant to be running. It's still that's why and so it turns into a doomsday device.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So, but it leads to the point where he does get to save his wife, but he has to go through the day one more time. And what this movie ends on, it ends with it exploding, and he wakes up, and he has to go through it one more time, but we don't get to see that last day.
We don't know if he survives or not.
But he knows it's a piece of cake, so...
Well, it also part of it too is I think that makes him a likable character, no matter the fact that he either sacrificed or was the hero there at the end. That was probably the least of his concerns because he had died 250 times, and he tells you all about it. And he almost, for a jacked, good-looking, ripped guy that can kick ass and seems to have the world in the palm of his hand. He actually seems a little bit like a bitch because he's going through all this stuff, and there's a couple times in this dying process as he voiceovers through it that he basically quits because he doesn't know forward, but he gets some inspiration, which turns out to be family and all that. So he seems like a bit of a punk, but as he realizes as he go through it, screw it, it's not worth it. Then he gets he gets killed a lot. Then something snaps. He figures out he can do this. He spends time with his son bonding. Then he can save his wife. Then he can save the whole family. So it was done well that way. I think they navigated a very tricky area.
There are some fun scenes in there when he talks about he wakes up with machete guy, he has to kill him, and he has to watch out because there's a guy in the helicopter outside his what you kind of call it, his loft with the 50 caliber machine gun. He has to jump out there and land onto the truck, but he said I missed the truck first few times, and boy does that hurt. I just love how he mentions like the death scenes are it's like. Yeah, they're painful. He's like
my favorite death scene. I don't know if you guys have one. Was it's where in the big long sequence that they in these time travel movies. Let's be honest. Who cares? It's a nice template. Some people are ripping off. If it's done right, it's okay. But there's usually one very long sequence that they do some minor variations and cut back to. So in the opening sequence that we get, when he's driving through, he's got the two ladies chasing him in the car. But then if he doesn't time it just right, he ends up hitting the religious bus, and his body flies through the window and lands. Now, like the way they filmed that was really good. There was some good effects in here.
He's I love it. He's like, I love how he says like, Did I time it right? Where's the bus? Crap.
And then the second or third time you see the body flying through, which is the same shot, and he's laying there in the aisle and people are freaking out and he dies. One of them, he's laying there and he's trying to kill himself. It's like, die already. He's talking to himself. And you see the people walking out. One lady like steps in his face in his eyeball with her high-heeled shoe. So it's a little variation of it. I was like, that was pretty funny.
The other guy, I'm being carjacked. He's being carjacked. I love it. He just always steals the car every single time.
I think the last thing I want to bring up here, though, as far as this movie goes, since we're here towards the end of the stream, is just the whole Mel Gibson element. I love Mel Gibson. I think he's a fantastic actor, director, producer, writer, whatever you want to call him. I know that he was probably, if you go back to when he was pulled over for drunk driving. I'm trying to watch my comments for the algo and for the people that get triggered going, oh, the movie was great, despite the fact Mel Gibson is in it. Those people are butthurt, and really their opinion doesn't matter. The guy has talent. It's just like Tom Cruise. I mean, they've got talent. They do things that work well for them. He's a phenomenal star. I can understand where if people don't like some of the things Mel Gibson's had to say that they choose not to watch a movie or like it. I think, unfortunately, the way things are today in Hollywood or just the movie production business, you get that. But I go, Mel Gibson was 62, I think, at the time of filming this. He's 65 now because it was 3 years ago it was filmed. This guy could still go on to do so many great things, and he's one of the few guys that I could put there in my top 5 of people I'd say, you know what? I would pay money to go see him in a film because he's that good. He never mails it in. He's definitely got an interesting charisma about him. And unfortunately, the majority of crop of people today, and again, I'm picking on you guys' favorite films in general. I say comic book films that I'm not a fan of. When you have all the CGI stuff in the background and all that, and who cares about the story? It's just, there's very few people that have that charisma that allow you to just go, man, this person is entertaining. Whatever they're given and they work with.
That's Robert Redford, man. When he was in Captain America, Winter Soldier, him playing in Hydra, going in there, the bad guy. I was like, dude, it's like Robert Redford knows how to command a room.
Well, I had made the comment on Mortal Kombat, and I wanted to tie it back to that because I'd forgotten to mention one thing about that one, and I think it applies here too, is that the main guy in Mortal Kombat, good-looking guy, I'm sure he appeals to the non-heterosexual crowd, which is fine. Charisma vacuum. He absolutely has no charisma at all. He has no watchability factor, period. The guy knows his martial arts. He's technically competent on all phases of it, but there's nothing about his performance, or the way he delivers the lines or moves or anything about him that you go, I want to watch this guy. And that's why diehard fans of Sean Connery will say he's the original 007. And the way I was comparing it to the other one was, I go think of Wayne's World, where there's the scene where, and I tweeted this out when I was promoting it when we were getting ready to do the review, that he goes in, he's like, Mister, I'm trying to find blah, blah, blah street, whatever, not Mulberry Street, but whatever it was. And he goes, I know it's like a bad part, but can't we get a better actor? And they replaced this old guy with Charlton Heston. And I will tell you guys that when I saw that in the theater in the early 90s, Charlton was having a little bit more of a run there than what he'd had in the late 80s. And the pop for him was huge. And I remember watching him as a kid. But today, he's considered a ham, not good, serious actor. But I will tell you, when you get somebody like a Charlton Heston, a Tom Cruise, which I know people will argue, and even they'll argue Mel Gibson a little bit, even though Mel Gibson's catalog I think is probably better. It's like men and boys on screen at the same time. And that's why if you have someone like Frank Grillo, who's a legitimate guy, physically, skill-wise, beats the crap out of everybody else that's play fighting with stuff, thinking they know martial arts.
Aside from Mortal Kombat and Cole Young character, Mel Gibson movie, and I agree with Mel Gibson I like him in the Lethal Weapon movies. I love him when he's the main star. Actually, he's playing a crazy role. Mm-hmm. I did not care for him in this role, and it's good that they only gave him a little bit because he just felt like a useless yuppie, boss. He couldn't even fight. He had people fight for him. Mm-hmm. So it didn't really feel like a Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson was a better villain in was it on Expendables?
Yeah, whatever. No, you're absolutely right. He lent himself enough to this film where it gave enough weight to the film that's all you needed him for. You didn't need him in here any longer. I agree with you. Yeah. Pixel, were you going to say something?
No, I agree. Mel Gibson is a fantastic actor, and I think he could have easily overpowered Frank Grillo, even though I do enjoy Frank Grillo's performance if he wanted to. But I think the balance is just enough. I don't think he needed to be in the film anymore. Just with how he was in the few scenes he had, it was enough.
I would say that he wouldn't overpower, but I'd say Frank, as far as going against Frank Grillo, Mel Gibson being his old age, he'd have to outsmart him. He could probably be a more evil, diabolical person. Already have contingency plans, have his own gun, they can make him a little more tough, but physical hand-to-hand contact, CQC or C, whatever it's called. Yeah,
Dare
you're not.
you to say that to Mel Gibson's face.
Well, I'm just saying the way they're portraying his character. You don't want to outshine the main character, who is the
Right,
action
exactly.
star.
Yeah.
So the character he's playing. They could have made him a little bit more threatening, and that's to me. Like, he's came off more like a joke. He's like, "Oh crap, protect me, big guy. That's what I'm paying you for. To protect me. Oh crap, he's gonna hit me." That's what I felt like. I was like,
Yeah.
what? This isn't Mel Gibson.
Evil CEO in this movie.
It would have worked, but if you're gonna have Mel Gibson, you gotta have him in the Fat Man, like a movie like that. That's
A
Mel
lot of
Gibson.
people don't like it, but that is Mel Gibson.
That is Mel Gibson, though. I don't care what people if they don't like it or not. I'm just saying that's the kind of characters he does. You look at he played Riggs. Riggs was just crazy like that. He's
always known for his intensity, so that kind of brings me back full circle to the way we started this film. Before we give our final thoughts and sign off for the night, one of the things obviously I wanted to bring up here where people are listening and plug is the fact that you two are reviewing the new Kung Fu, which I'm meh on because I was such a huge fan of the original, and just from what little I've seen in terms of trailers and stuff, I'm not sure if I would like what they've done to it, despite it may being done effectively. And you guys are like 3 episodes in now, I believe, in the new show. How would the action in a film like that with little people and the choreography you think compared to this film? Please, both of you guys, don't talk at once.
little people and choreography. What are you going on about? Sorry.
Okay, Kung Fu's got a petite Asian woman that beats the shit out of everybody, and they do it all ninja style where they come at her one at a time. And it's the choreography is very Matrix oriented, looking from what I've seen, and not very good as far as the TV goes, despite the fact that I think you guys mentioned there's a lot of it.
Do you want us to compare that to this movie's action?
Frank Grillo, yeah.
Frank Grillo wasn't doing martial arts really. He was just doing hand-to-hand fights. He wasn't doing. He was doing shooting and stuff. He wasn't doing martial arts. He did a little bit of sword fighting, and that was about it. He wasn't doing martial arts. So I can't really compare.
But I do have to say that sword fighting scene was fantastic.
Yes, it was.
And when Guan Yin realized, oh crap, and
I am Frank Pulver. I have done this.
I'm Frank. I've done this.
Okay, so the point I was just trying to make here is that,
yeah,
again, going back to the fact that he's a legitimate guy, he's cast in a film where the way he walks, physically moves, it's totally believable. Because I've not watched the rebooted Kung Fu, I can't speak to it. I'm not
going to trash another show just to prop up this movie. That's what
I'm not trashing anything to prop it up. I asked you guys to compare and contrast it. That's all, and it seemed like
it's 2 different things. To try to compare it.
Well, I do have to say, if I were to try to compare the action between the two, it is different. This isn't as. It's not Kung Fu in this movie.
No.
It's more sword fighting and hand-to-hand combat, but it's not
blood fu.
Yeah, but
it's Deadpool. That's what it is.
God, I didn't think about that, but it does seem similar. Yeah. All right, final thoughts, RDV.
Final thoughts. Go see this movie. You haven't seen it. It's available on Hulu right now. I'm not sure if it's available for sale on DVD or Blu-ray, but look on Amazon. Maybe it is, but. Dude, the Gronk's in here, man. If you're not a fan of the Gronk, right? If you don't know who the Gronk is, that's Rob Gronkowski, man. He's a Patriot. Or for ex-Patriot now, Tampa Bay
Buccaneer, sir. I say Tampa, you say Bay. All right, Pixel, final thoughts?
I do have to agree with that. This movie is absolutely one that you can enjoy. I don't really have anything negative that I can think about saying, so it is just all highs all the way, so enjoy yourselves.
The only negative I can say about this is there isn't a sequel.
And the only thing I'll say is, and I'll repeat what I said at the beginning when we first launched, it's a fun movie. It's nothing that's going to piss you off. It's gratuitously violent. There's some creative kills in there. It's a long movie. It's almost 2 hours long, but it seems to work. It's a Boston soundtrack for all intents and purposes. Some of the other scoring was pretty neat. The electronic sound stuff to it that was there constantly. I think that really, really helped the film. It was better than I thought it was going to be, and I was surprised. And yes, I did say I liked it better than Godzilla versus Kong and Mortal Kombat, and I thought it was a better film. I enjoyed all 3 to various levels, but this one from start to finish was I had a few chuckles with it. So yeah, go check it out on Hulu, video on demand, wherever you may be, however you may choose to go see it. It's definitely worth the watch here, and that's why we chose to review it here on the Extreme Movie Show. For Professor Pixel, for RDB, myself, Rob here. Have a good night, everybody. And as always, stay extreme.